Welcome to a Thanksgiving edition of Begley's Mailbag here on SNY. I'm Ian Begley, SNY's NBA insider, and I am here to take your questions about the Knicks and the league and dive right into some fun topics. So we're going to start off here with Green Panda GP. Green Panda wants to know, the Mavs are reportedly going to listen to AD offers. Do you think it's something the Knicks will at least explore? If not now, could things going worse than expected here force them to look into it? I'll start here, Green Panda. This is a win-now season for the Knicks. My belief is that most people in the organization see this season without Tyrese Haliburton, without Jason Tatum for much of the year as a fantastic opportunity to go ahead, get to the finals, and get all the way. So with that being said, I think that every move that's on the table would have to be considered by New York. And in terms of Anthony Davis, obviously, I don't see it happening given the construction of the team. And I'm not sure even with the finances, if the Knicks have what it takes to match salary there in terms of where they are in the apron situation. So it's interesting, though, because when Anthony Davis was with the Pelicans and they were kind of figuring out their future, where they were going to go, were they going to go to Lakers, were they going to go elsewhere, I was told that the Knicks were on Anthony Davis's radar as a place where he was interested in going. Obviously, that's a long time ago, and it's unlikely to happen at this point. But certainly from an NBA perspective, league-wide perspective, that Anthony Davis situation is one to watch. Also, I would keep an eye on Kyrie Irving, because if the Mavericks go ahead and blow it up, Irving, I'm sure, would be on the table there, and they'd want to figure out what to do with Irving, his future. So a lot going on there in Dallas. Got one here from Mike Ree. Mike wants to know, it's way too early, but nonetheless, would a decent backup PG or another big be priority number one for the Knicks at the trade deadline? Let's say everybody's healthy and rotation players are healthy. My belief is that backup point guard would be the priority there. Somebody who could come off the bench, handle the ball, run an offense, and give Jalen Brunson a chance to rest. And so I think that's where the priority would be if everyone is healthy once you get to February, over other positions. Again, long way to go between now and then, but that's my read on it currently. Got one from my friend John Macri, Dean of Knicks Film School. He says, first time, long time, and it's too early to talk about trades in earnest. You had to bet on the Knicks attempting to trade for a ball handler, a wing, or a big before the deadline. Where are you putting your money? I think that backup point guard spot is where I would put my money if everyone is healthy. So assuming full health, that's where I think that they would go if all things were equal. Obviously, injuries change everything, and also who's available can kind of change your thinking. If there's no one that's available via trade at the position that you like, in this case, I'm talking about backup point guard, maybe you do shift. But I think that with the backup big situation, I'm not going to say that there's a lot of depth there, but I think there's enough there to where the Knicks, would be comfortable that if they had to focus in on one area, make one trade, they wouldn't have to focus on the backup big, and they could go ahead and see who's out there on the backup point guard market. I think, Miles McBride, it would help McBride because he could play off the ball exclusively, and it could just help things kind of be in order with the offense when Jalen Brunson is not around. Have one from Moro, who wants to know, why do the Knicks struggle so much defending threes? Fourth worst in the league last year. This year we're third worst. I can only conclude that just based on that big body of evidence, that it's a personnel thing, that's where this team is just limited because of the makeup of the roster. I think they've done a pretty good job in terms of controlling the paint, keeping teams out of the paint by and large, but getting out to shooters once they're in rotation has been tough. And at this point, given that we saw so much of it, we had so much evidence last season that they struggle in that area of the game, and most of the players are back and they're struggling again. I think it's just a limitation of the roster, and I'm not sure how much could be done to fix that. Maybe some of what we're seeing is variance, so maybe that helps the Knicks, where teams just miss shots that they have been making. but I think you're giving up a lot of open looks especially off of initial penetration and a kick. And so I think that may be something you have to get used to if you're a Knicks fan, just seeing your team struggle to defend beyond the arc. Skywalker wants to know, are the Knicks going to end up like the Celtics, where they live by the three, they die by the three? I think if living by the three means they end up where the Celtics were, which is winning a title, I think they would sign up for that. But I understand the sentiment of the question from Skywalker, because you can shoot your way out of a basketball game if you're just totally consumed with essentially making the game a math project and putting up threes. But I think the difference here is more often than not, the Knicks are getting a quality look from beyond the arc, and it's not being forced. Jalen Brunson pointed out that even some of their end of the shot clock looks that may seem rushed, there's an order there, and there's a step-by-step process for them to get to that place in that set, and the look is pretty good. So, they chart that. They chart the quality of the three-point shot that they take. They chart the quality of the contest that they make. I believe that assistant coach TJ Saint brought that over with them in terms of the quality of threes. And so you're seeing the Knicks focus there on getting good looks. I don't think it's something where, they're just shooting threes to shoot them so far. I think if you go look at the tape, more often than not, again, it's a good look. It's maybe a rhythm shot off of a dribble penetration. So I think you're seeing them take some decent, some quality looks here. If that discontinues, if they start to just chuck, it's a different story. But so far, so good there, I think, on the three-point shooting. Got one from my buddy Andrew Abraham. Andrew wants to know thoughts on Gershon Yabusele, his struggles, and if you believe he'll turn it around. Plus, do you believe the front office will look to move him if he continues to struggle, or is it more likely that he stays and plays out the season? I still think that he will turn around. I think that with the amount of basketball he played over the last calendar year, you're looking at the Olympics, then the most minutes that he's played in his career in Philadelphia last season, and then the Euros over the summer. It's a lot of basketball. And I just think maybe conditioning, it wasn't where it was when he was playing all those minutes, all those games, once he came into camp. So I have to assume the conditioning will improve over time, and I do think he'll be better. But just in terms of, potential trades, you see it all the time in the league where if a free agent signing isn't working out the way the player hoped, the way the team hoped, then, the player and the team kind of can work together and figure out several destinations where you send that player. And so you do see that in the league a lot. It's happened with the Knicks before. So maybe if it's clearly it's not improving at all when you get to December 15th and then obviously into February, maybe work something out there. But I do still think that there's a lot of room for Yabusele to grow, and I do think his play will improve. Got one from 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 wants to know, if the Knicks fail to make it to the finals this season, is there any player or coach in the organization who would be safe from James Dolan's potential wrath? The team owner, it's early, but worth pondering, in my opinion. Look, nobody loves the palace intrigue with the Knicks more than I do, so I appreciate the question. I think that if you talk about that scenario, if I had to guess, I would guess Jalen Brunson would be safe. I'm actually pretty sure Jalen Brunson would be safe. But if you talk about Mike Brown, you talk about the front office, that would be a different story. Obviously, in this particular scenario, it depends on how they lose and why they lose and the circumstances surrounding the roster at that point in time. But yeah, if they fall short and it's clear that the roster as it was not as good as they had hoped it would be, yeah, there's going to be changes, and there probably would be big changes because that's where the expectation is for this Knicks team this year. Little bonus question from our guy Fucci Maine, Max Fucci, who wants to know, if I could pick a current Knick and a past Knick to have at Thanksgiving dinner, who would it be? This is a great question. I love it. Little torn on current Knicks. Part of me says OG Anunoby because, he's sometimes a little bit reserved with the media, but, you talk to his teammates, and he's got a pretty big personality, pretty strong sense of humor. So part of me wants to invite OG just to maybe see that side of him more in a dinner setting. The other part of me says it's got to be Josh Hart. Josh, whatever, usually in a media availability, I'll crack up 2 or 3 times just based on what he's saying and his timing and his sense of humor. So he would be entertaining, bring a lot of levity to the table of Thanksgiving. So I'd probably go with Josh over OG, but it is close. Past, that's an easy one for me. J.R. Smith. J.R., I loved covering him. I thought that he, a lot of times, just wore his heart on his sleeve, on the court, off the court. I thought he was pretty misunderstood. A guy with a big heart. Everybody has flaws. He had flaws, but I thought that some of that stuff kind of was not overblown, but over-focused on when you looked at him and the body of work and who he is. But I would just love to be able to sit down with him 2, 3, 4 hours, talk basketball, talk Knicks, talk life. I always found it to be a fascinating interview, always appreciated his time. So that's where I would go with those two, but it's a great question. That'll do it for this edition of Begley's Mailbag. We will be back December 4th with an episode of The Putback. So thank you for joining us here. Be sure to keep an eye out for us then. And also, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there, to you and your families. Hope you enjoy the holiday.